Dear friends, last time I stopped the lecture devoted to science and technology in the United Kingdom. Today I'm going to continue this problem, and at the end of this lecture I'll give you the topics which you may use to write your projects about the United Kingdom. So, unfortunately, last week it was impossible to continue because we were not allowed to come to the university for some time because of pandemic and the coronavirus. But this time I came, and I'll give 2 lectures devoted to the United Kingdom. Then I'm going to give you a week to answer the questions in writing, to write the projects, and then we'll pass on to the United States of America. Okay. So, I want to tell you before I'll speak about the scientists and technologists of the United Kingdom who worked in the field of computer science. I want to tell you some words about Adam Smith. Adam Smith was a Scottish economist, philosopher, an author, as well as a moral philosopher, and a pioneer of political economy, also known as the father of economics or the father of capitalism. He lived in the 18th century. Smith wrote 2 classical works, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, which was published in 1759, and An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wreath of Nations, which was published in 1776. The latter, the second, work is often abbreviated as the Wealth of Nations, and it is considered as the first modern work of economics. In his work, Adam Smith introduced his theory of absolute advantage. Smith obtained a professorship at Glasgow, teaching moral philosophy, and during this time wrote and published The Theory of Moral Sentiments. In his later life, he took a tutorial position that allowed him to travel throughout Europe, where he met other intellectual leaders of his day. Smith laid the foundations of classical free market of economic theory. The Wealth of Nations was a предшественник to the modern academic discipline of economics. In this and in his other works, he developed the concept of division of labor and expounded, развил теорию, on how rational self-interest and competition could lead to economic prosperity. Well, so as for the other names, which you'll see on the screen, I've already spoken about them, so we'll stop on the following names. Okay? So, there are a lot of the scientists in the UK who played an important part in development of computers. It is impossible not to mention George Boole, whose name is connected with the term Boolean algebra. Certainly you know this term. In his works, The Mathematical Analysis of Logic, which was published in 1847, and Investigation of the Laws of Thought, which was published in 1854, George Boole introduced mathematical principles important for those who study electronics and logical electronic devices. Boolean algebra has been fundamental in the development of digital electronics and is provided for all modern programming languages. The UK has been playing a very great role in the field of computing. A father of computer, Charles Babbage, who lived from 1791 to 1871, was also born in Great Britain. A mathematician, philosopher, and mechanical engineer, Charles Babbage, is credited with inventing the first mechanical computer. Although the computer was not completed, it is considered the one which led to more complex designs. In 1991, his computer was reconstructed from the parts which were on display and are on display in the London Science Museum, according to Babbage's original plan. And it was proved that Charles Babbage's computer could have worked if it could have been completed. There was a lady, Augusta Ada King. It's very interesting that she was the daughter of famous English poet Byron. And she did not inherit her father's talent of poetry, but she was an English mathematician, chiefly known for her work on Charles Babbage's computer. She was the first to recognize that the machine had applications beyond pure calculation, and published the first algorithm intended to be carried out by a machine. She is sometimes regarded as the first to recognize the full potential of a computing machine and the first computer programmer. The invention of the first digital computer also belongs to the Englishman Alan Turing, who lived from 1912 to 1954. He did not live long. So-called Turing machine became the foundation of the modern theory of computation. Besides, during the Second World War, Turing worked with his assistants for the government code and cipher school Bletchley Park. Britain's site-breaking center. He led Hut 8, the section responsible for German naval cryptanalysis. He devised a number of techniques for speeding the breaking of German ciphers, and the electromechanical machine that could find settings for the so-called Enigma machine. From 1945 to 1947, Turing lived in London, where he worked on the design of automatic computer engine at the National Physical Laboratory. He presented the paper in 1946, which was the first detailed design of a stored program computer. In 1948, Turing was appointed reader in the mathematics department at the Victoria University of Manchester. Reader is something like our Russian docent. In 1949, he became deputy director of the Computing Machine Laboratory, working there on software for one of the earliest stored program computers, the Manchester Mark I. Do you remember the combination deputy director? It's ZAM director. Turing is widely considered to be the father of theoretical science and artificial intelligence. In 1950, he published a very impressive work, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, foreseeing many questions of artificial intelligence. In this paper, he proposed a Turing test, which is still applied in attempting to answer whether a computer could and can be intelligent. So, some other scientists and technologies. Scientists are continuing to play a very important role in the UK. Tim Berners-Lee, who lived from 1989 to 2018, took a greater part in the creation of the World Wide Web. He was a professional fellow of computer science at the University of Oxford and a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Do you remember the abbreviation of this institute? MIT. Berners-Lee proposed an information management system on the 12th of March in 1989. Then implemented the first successful communication between a hypertext transfer protocol, client and server, via the internet in mid-November. Via the internet in mid-November. So do you remember this Latin word via? It's through. Cheers. Berners-Lee was the director of the World Wide Web Consortium, which oversees the continued development of the web. He was also the founder of the World Wide Web Foundation and a senior researcher and holder of 3 co-founders chair at the MIT Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. In 2004, Berners-Lee was knighted by Queen Elizabeth. He was knighted by Queen Elizabeth and was given the title Lord for his pioneer work. He was named in Time magazine's list of the 100 most important people of the 20th century and was honored as the inventor of the World Wide Web, WWW, during the 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony at the London Olympic Stadium. It's absolutely important to tell about a very talented British scientist, Stephen Hawking, who was born in 1942 and lived till 2017. He was a British theoretical physicist, known for his contributions to the fields of cosmology, general relativity, and quantum gravity, especially in the context of black holes. In spite of his terrible physical state, while he was still young, he was paralyzed and could work only on computer using his eyes. Hawking made outstanding discoveries and theories in cosmology, quantum gravity, and black holes. When Hawking lost his ability to speak, California computer programmer developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. At the end, only eye movement, at the end of his life. The invention allowed Hawking to select words on a computer screen that was then passed through a speech synthesizer. At the time of introduction of it, or its introduction, Hawking, who still had the use of his fingers at that time, selected his orders with a handheld clicker. Later, with all control of his body gone, Hawking directed the program through a cheek muscle and attached to a sensor. Through the program, Stephen Hawking wrote a great number of scientific papers and very interesting 2 books, A Brief History of Time and The Universe in a Nutshell. A Brief History of Time became an account of cosmology for the masses, understandable for simple people, not professionals. The same was directed, the Universe in a Nutshell was also directed at the simple people, understandable by those who just wanted to read the book. Both of these books had a great success and were translated into 40 languages, including the Russian language. 4 years later, he authored A Brief History of Time for the second time. Together, the books explain how the universe began and express Hawking's conviction that time travel is possible and that humans may come and live on other planets in future. In 2007, at the age of 65, Hawking made his important step towards space travel while visiting the Kennedy Space Center in Florida in the United States. He was given an opportunity to experience an environment without gravity. during 2 hours over the Atlantic Ocean. Hawking was a passenger of Boeing 727 and experienced bursts of weightlessness. In 2015, he held a news conference in London. Funded by Russian entrepreneur Yuri Milner, Hawking created a special program, Breakthrough, lesson devoted to discovery of extraterrestrial life. He died on March 2018 at the age of 76. You see, he was so much interested in his work that he was able to live longer, being absolutely paralyzed. In the 20th century, the UK is losing the lead to US science in importance. However, many important studies are still underway here. The UK remains a leading center of auto design and production, particularly of engines, and has around 2,600 component manufacturers. The UK plays a leading part in the aerospace industry, with companies including Rolls-Royce playing a leading role in the aero engine market. BAF Systems, defense company, developing armory and information security, was acting and is acting as Britain's largest and the Pentagon's 6th largest defense supplier of military weapons. GKN – it's концерн, производящий компоненты автомобилей, вертолетов, сельхозтехники и другие. This concern is acting as major suppliers to the Airbus project. The Airbus A380 has wings and engines manufactured in the United Kingdom. 2 British-based companies, GlaxoSmithKline and AstraZeneca, ranked in the top 5 pharmaceutical companies in the world by sales in 2009, and the UK companies have discovered and developed a lot of leading medicines than any other country apart from the United States. At our time, at the time of pandemic, I read that something about our mutual Russian, British mutual efforts for the creation of the medicines for, you remember that in the English language you use a preposition for, not against, for the treatment of coronavirus. Well, a little bit about UK-Russia Scientific Corporation. In spite of the considerable political tensions between the United Kingdom and Russia, scientific cooperation is existing and developing. Besides collaboration in traditional Russian scientific top fields such as physics, mathematics, chemistry, geosciences, and space, there has also been an increase in joint work in areas identified by Nature in 2016 as rising stars, such as life sciences. Science festivals were organized, running across, and been an increase in joint work in areas identified by nature. In 2016, as rising stars again, such as life sciences, I'm repeating this sentence. In 2017, the UK-Russia Year of Science and Education was agreed between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Boris Johnson. Science festivals were organized, running across the country, including in Moscow and St. Petersburg. A special program for young Russian researchers was made to run seminars and get access to international journals. Well, you're welcome to add the materials about British science, British technology. You're welcome to devote your projects to some scientists, especially to computer science technologists and scientists, great to computer science, great people. And certainly you can find a lot of materials devoted to them. I stopped on the great names belonging to the UK very, very, very briefly. But you can find them repeating, you can find a lot of material devoted to them. So, and just now, I'm passing on to another problem, to the problem devoted culture of the UK. Because the culture of the United Kingdom is rich and varied. Although the country is small, you see, there are 130.423 square kilometers only. There is a great difference between south, west, and north, southern parts, western part, and northern part. The most places of interest are situated in south, and especially, of course, in London. You may have met the sentence, when a man is tired of London, it means he is tired of life. Because to describe all sides of the UK, we need too much time, even to describe all sides of London. Therefore, I want to talk only about the most popular and interesting ones. To begin with, the Tower of London, situated close to the River Thames. The tower was built in the 11th century by William the Conqueror to enforce the power of the Norman king. Over the time, the complex was certainly expanded and fortified with 20 towers. The Tower of London went through different periods. It was used as home of several kings, and later as a prison for political opponents. Important prisoners were often locked there, sometimes with their servants and relatives. Among famous people who were imprisoned in the tower, there was Thomas More before his execution. At the moment, the tower is a museum, best known for its crown jewels and royal armories, including the personal armory of King Henry VIII. In my second lecture, I told you about King Henry VIII. Perhaps you remember something about him. If you don't, come back to my second lecture. The main entrance of the tower is at the Byward Tower, where visitors and tourists can see so-called beefeaters or warders, охранники. Dressed in historic clothes, they not only guard the tower, but also give tours of the fortress. One of the warders is called the Raven Master, responsible for the ravens that have been living there for centuries. What are these birds? Do you remember? Ravens, вороны. There are plenty more to see in London. The Houses of Parliament, also known as the Palace of Westminster, is the seat of two British parliamentary houses, with a famous clock tower known as Big Ben. The oldest hall of the Houses of Parliament is Westminster Hall, dating back to 1097. Buckingham Palace is one of several palaces owned by the British royal family. The palace was bought by George III from the Duke of Buckingham, from whom it takes the name. Buckingham Palace is one of the major tourist attractions in London. The colorful changing of the guards in front of the palace always attracts plenty of spectators and tourists. Westminster Abbey is a place of coronations and other ceremonies of national significance. Situated on the grounds of a former monastery, it was refounded as the Church of St. Peter in Westminster by Queen Elizabeth I in 1560. In 1987, Westminster Abbey and the Houses of Parliament were collectively designed a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Heritage is наследие. St. Paul's Cathedral, built by Christopher Wren from 1675 to 1711, is one of the largest cathedrals in Europe. Although it was not once destroyed by fire, it was rebuilt and expanded or rebuilt. There are two forms of the past, of the perfect. The last damage was made during the Second World War, when the German bomb spoiled the altar. Several famous people are buried in St. Paul's Cathedral, including the Duke of Wellington, who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo, Admiral Nelson, some other important people. Christopher Wren himself was buried in his cathedral. As for the museums in London, I want to begin with the British Museum, dedicated to human history and culture. Its permanent collection, numbering over 8 million works, is among the largest and most comprehensive in the world. The British Museum was established in 1753. Its expansion over the following time was a result of the British colonial or colonial expansion. Colonial expansion, sorry for the first word, yeah. Its expansion over the following time was a result of the British colonial expansion. I'm repeating the sentence. There are departments of the multiple exhibits from all the countries of British former dominions and colonies. The departments of Africa and Asia and Oceania cover over 75,000 antique objects from Egypt, Greece, and Rome empires, from Iraq, India, Sudan, including the best collections of Egyptian mummies. Drawing department presents works by Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, Durer, Peter Paul Rubens, Rembrandt, Claudel, and Watteau. Attached to the British Museum, there is a library where a lot of famous people got education. Frederick Engels, Vladimir Lenin, Charles Dickens, and many, many others. Besides the British Museum, there are some other art galleries where one can see pieces of art. The most famous are the National Gallery and Tate Modern. The National Gallery is located in Trafalgar Square in London. Founded in 1824, it houses a collection of over 2,300 paintings dating back to the the 13th century to the 20th century, and until today. It has the most comprehensive collection of Italian Renaissance outside Italy. Among the artists represented there are Raphael, Leonardo, and Vermeer. The museum's collection of French Impressionists is also notable. Tate Modern Gallery was built and opened in 1897. In 1889, Henry Tate offered his collection of British 19th century art to the nation and provided funding for the first Tate Gallery. Today, Tate has 4 major sites. It holds the national collection of British art from 1900 to the present day, and the works of international modern and contemporary art. In London, there is also a National Portrait Gallery presenting the portraits and sculptures of royals, starting with the early Tudors, scientists, politicians, and other celebrities, including the most famous portrait of William Shakespeare. This is the portrait which all of us know. The National History Museum in London is a natural museum that exhibits a vast range of specimens from various segments of natural history, and it is one of 3 major museums on Exhibition Road in South Kensington. The others being Science Museum and Victoria and Albert Museum. The Science Museum was founded in 1857. It included a collection of machinery, industry, technology, and medicine. It exhibits 300,000 objects, among which the first computer by Babbage. I've already mentioned this exhibit. There are some other impressive art museums in different areas of the country. For example, the National Museum of Scotland with collections of Scottish antiques, culture, and history. The special place among British museums has a museum by Madame Mary Tussaud. Mary Tussaud learned modeling techniques from a skilled wax sculptor, Dr. Curtius, for whom Mary's mother was a housekeeper. In 1794, Dr. Curtius died, and Mary inherited his business. Her talent became noticeable, and she was invited to make the death masks of Mary Antoinette, Louis XVI, Jean-Paul Marat, after they had been executed during the French Revolution. Life was difficult in France after the revolution at that time. In 1802, Mary Tussaud made a decision to go to England and run the exhibition. She spent 33 years traveling in Britain, exhibiting her growing collection of figures. Her two sons helped her in making wax figures, among them figures of Lord Byron, King George IV, Shakespeare, Emperor Napoleon, and others. When she was able to find a building in London, her collection began to grow, with the addition of what is called the Chamber of Horrors, including famous murderers and monsters. Excuse me, just a moment. My telephone is calling. Алло. Отвлекается, лекцию читаю. Через часик. Спасибо. Well, so, I am telling you about Chamber of Horrors. It's very interesting chamber, room, because it includes a lot of famous murderers and monsters. It's even frightful to be here, to be there, I'm sorry. When Madame Tussaud died in 1850, her portrait, made 8 years before her death, added her collection. At the moment, Madame Mary Tussaud Museum is growing very fast, adding the most popular celebrities and remaining a world-famous tourist attraction. You know, when I was there when I visited the museum last time. There were already the sculptors, figures of Yuri Gagarin, Gorbachev, Yeltsin, a lot of British celebrities, astronauts, cosmonauts, as I've already mentioned, and whom not. And some of them look as if alive people. And when you pass them, well, you're sometimes frightened that they're alive people. Well, the last museum, which is absolutely necessary to mention, is the one belonging to Greenwich Observatory, displaying the astronomical and navigational tools and clocks, including one of the most precise clocks belonging to Russian Fyodor Fedchenko. The Royal Observatory itself is best known as the location of the prime meridian. The observatory is located on a hill in Greenwich Park, overlooking the River Thames. There are a lot of beautiful parks in London. Maybe you've heard, or not maybe, you have certainly heard of very popular Hyde Park with their corner of speakers, very huge park. Then the Kensington Gardens, and there is a very interesting botanical garden, Keys. Well, if you happen to go to London later on when pandemic is over, I advise you also to go to London Zoo. Well, it's very big. It presents a lot of animals from all parts of the world. Well, at the end of this lecture, I want to give you or suggest projects, compositions on the UK life. These projects are supposed to contain from 5 to 12 papers, and don't forget to use to place the materials which you are going to use for your future projects. Okay? So, they are the following. Important scientific and technological advances made by people from the UK. Scientific research. There is a question, will you try to compare education systems in the Russian Federation and in the UK? Well, then, I'm sure that some of you would like to write about culture, about cultural life of this country. I'm sure that very many of you read a lot of British writers, people, so you can write about literature on the whole, or about some of the writers who you are interested in. So maybe you'll choose to write about British museums and interesting sites. Maybe you'll write, you will be glad to write about national British characters. Then, of course, personalities, different personalities, see? Including politicians, including culture, literature, and so on. Then, maybe you'd like to write about British media and express your opinion. So, the title is the following. What do you think of the British media? And imagine that you'll go to London and stay in London for some time. So the title of the future project will be something like this: Living in London, Advantages and Disadvantages to your mind. Because I'm sure that you've read about living in London, that perhaps you have relatives or friends who went to London, who went to this country, to the UK, and study at the British universities, and stay there for a time, so you may speak to them and compare living in London with living and staying in Moscow or other big Russian cities. Well, so I'm repeating again that I'll try to give you time to write about these suggested titles, projects, themes. Well, and I want to add that if you want to write about British music or sports, I won't mind. So you may devote your projects to these problems. So I advise you not to put aside writing project devoted to the UK, not to put aside writing about these projects to the middle or end of December. But I suggest you writing about Britain just after the end of the lectures devoted to Britain and to the UK, while you remember something after listening and reading about the UK, about Britain. I hope that you won't put aside listening to the lecture, reading the material again to the day of the passes that you're of. And you'll read and follow my speaking, reading the material after each lesson. I advise you to do this, doing this. So next two lectures will be devoted to the following problems. Next time I'll try to speak about social life in this country, about habits, about holidays, and then about British very rich literature. So I'll devote 2 next lectures to the United Kingdom, and after that I'll pass over to the United States of America. So I'll devote my lectures to the United States of America, beginning with the middle of October, and then November, and then beginning of December. After that, I'll give you time to be prepared for the credit for the passes, and then we'll appoint the days, not one day, but the days of the credit. We'll appoint the examiners, and will certainly inform you about these days. And then I'll give you all possible questions, problems, which will be given to you at the day of the credit, of the passes. So don't worry, don't be afraid. You'll have, first of all, plenty of time for preparation, and then all possible questions to prepare for. Bye-bye today.